Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings A through Z. This Minisode series brings you a different coaster every week, and this week's letter is K for
Kumba.
Welcome to Kumba, to your first experience of the mighty beast. Begin your journey up Kumba's main incline. Ascending slowly, your train makes its way through the center of a vertical loop before reaching Kumba's maximum height of 143 feet. Once over the top, you turn and plummet 135 feet to the bottom of the drop.
Kumba, one of our absolute favorite roller coasters here in Florida, located at Busch Gardens Tampa.
We love having any excuse or opportunity to talk about this ride. It is one of our favorites. This was B&M's first big looper project, or like standard sit-down looping coaster. Up to that point, they had built stand-up coasters and inverted coasters of kind of a smaller, compact size. But this was like their first big, like, massive ride.
It kind of introduced like the Mega Looper beyond what Aero did with elevating elements. It really created big elements, big inversions, and that kind of made it like the looper we know nowadays. The coaster opened on April 20th of 1993. Opening with the world's tallest vertical loop.
Just the sheer size of the different elements and stuff was just completely unheard of. Because even, the smaller projects that they had done, the loops, the inversions on a ride like Batman the Ride were in a similar scale to that which we've already seen, but like the big, massive, augmented inversions of Kumba were just completely special and unique to the ride. The ride is 43.6 meters tall, or 143 feet tall, 96.6 kilometers per hour, or 60 miles per hour at its fastest, and 1,212.5 meters, or 3,978 feet long. And it has 7 inversions, most of which are totally unique.
Kumba also has 4 trains, 3 of which can run at once. Not that has happened a whole lot lately, but this possibility and all 4 trains still exist. The cool thing is that the giant train barn is actually located in the middle of the ride plot. So when you're standing in the station, you can actually see the giant barn. Kind of cool because it's one of the first coasters to, first of all, have 4 in a row seating on a sit-down coaster, but also one of the first coasters to have that large of a train bay for a regional theme park.
Kumba means roar in the African Congo language.
Which is an actual language. I had to look it up. Because I thought it was Congo isn't like just like a tribal language, something spoken in the Congo region, but it's actually the name of the language. You know that?
I did know that.
I did know that, so I was like, let me throw it in there because I think it's super cool.
Yes.
Kind of reminds me of Zonga at the Discovery Kingdom, where they had to specify it something in Swahili. Wasn't that the case?
Yeah.
So I would just I wanted to be very accurate here.
Okay.
Anywho.
Very good.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's continue.
Anywho, the coaster also has a vertical loop that wraps around the ride's lift hill, very similar to Riddler's Revenge.
Yes. The first roller coaster to do that was a Togo coaster, Togo looping coaster.
It's gone now though.
Mamanga
Super sad. Mamanga stand
loop
loop coaster. That thing was so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, not to go off topic, but
We're gonna go off topic.
Kumba has an M in it, and Mamanga starts with an M. So there you go. Anywho's,
Wow. Okay. Kumba is integrated with the rest of the Congo area at Busch Gardens Tampa and moves around the park's Rapids Ride, the Congo River Rapids Ride. Intamin first generation River Rapids Ride. The park's Serengeti train also passes under Kumba. It threads the Cobra Roll. In fact, the ride does a really nice job of navigating around existing points of interest in the area. And the whole little Congo area, I think, is a very nice, well put together section of the park with 2 pretty strong, iconic little attractions there.
yeah, it's very nice. I think it's my favorite area of the park because it's very tree, there's a lot of trees, so it's very
kind of
forested,
floating,
very
yeah.
shady, and then there's bridges that connect parts of the Congo area, and then Kumba just kind of sizzles through that, or roars through it rather. The cool thing I think is with the train, because the train is a steam train, so it will have the smoke or steam coming up, and then when the train hits the Cobra Roll, just as the train comes, as the park train goes underneath, it's really cool and kind of wild. So really nice integration. I wish they still did that with their more modern rides. But I mean, think about it, Cheetah Hunt's really nicely integrated too. So they
turned out to be a
that.
Busch Gardens thing, not a.
It was definitely
B&M
a Busch
thing.
Gardens thing. Because then there's the parking lot coasters. Next up, actually, Busch built another version of this coaster, a newer one called Dragon Con at Portaventura. So for those that didn't know, the park was actually built by Busch Gardens before being sold to Universal prior to Portaventura's opening, which then became Universal Mediterranean. And of course now it's part of a different chain, and it's just called Portaventura World.
The new product line of B&M was, this particular one was writing on the wall for Arrow's demise. At the same time, Arrow was tasked with building Dragonfire, an attempt at building a modern looping coaster to compete with B&M, and we all know how that ended.
It's just wild to me to think that Dragonfire was going to be Arrow's answer to building a mega looper, because you kind of have to think about it this way. Both Busch Gardens Tampa and Busch Gardens Williams both wanted to build large looping coasters at the same time, and B&M was already too busy fulfilling all these smaller projects, but then also the big project Kumba. So they couldn't take on Dragonfire, and Busch Gardens Williams were like, okay, we're not waiting. So they instead went with an Arrow promise that completely failed. And I think that's one of those moments in Arrow's timeline where I think everyone can clearly see where Arrow really wasn't going to live up to it. The fact that they still lasted as many years as they did after that is an absolute surprise.
The fact that Dragonfire wasn't the end of that company is amazing to me. In fact, they've got a couple of coasters rides that opened the same year as like B&M similar stuff. Like with Kumba, we have Fantasia Special, the basic double loop triple corkscrew, and then while B&M was building Dragon Con and breaking the inversion record, Arrow was building Big Dipper at Luna Park with its goofy transitions. But
to be fair, Kumba was such an incredible project for just the coaster industry as a whole. It's also referred to as a coaster that introduced well-known elements, such as the dive loop is the first, the zero-G loop, the zero-G roll in its sit-down version, the interlocking corkscrews that we all love so much. So and the lineup of elements that were found on Kumba's layout, even though they were all kind of introduced for the first time, have proven to be so successful that now they're standard on most B&M loopers, including the floorless coasters. So you can think about Scream, Medusa.
A lot of floorless coasters are kind of just remixes of Kumba. Really, everything that is a sit-down looping coaster from B&M is the DNA from Kumba is in there. Everything Kraken, Superman, Krypton coaster, Dominator, all of those rides, Wildfire, are all just kind of taking what Kumba did and packaging it differently to suit the needs of different clients and topography and whatnot.
And I just think it's important to recognize the fact that when Kumba opened, it was the first time that a looping coaster had a bunch of different inversions. I mean, the 7 was the max at the time, but for all of them to be different. Okay, I understand there's 2 corkscrews, but they were interlocking, so even that was a whole different kind of setup. It wasn't the continuous rolling corkscrew that we known from the Vekomas and for the Arrows. It was the interlocking corkscrew. So it's really impressive that B&M designed this coaster and came up with 7 unique elements, and then of course interwove it with the rest of the Congo area and building a tunnel and a helix. And overall, Kumba still really shines as in they did everything they could, and even coasters after that, they kind of cut some of the meat off, and they kind of made it some. Well,
the part after the corkscrews is honestly one of my favorite, because you set yourself up for that little swoop under the station, underground tunnel, into an uphill helix. That's a great moment. That's a fabulous finale for a ride that is very inversion centric, for the finale to be so pronounced and also not be an inversion.
Another thing that's really funny about Kumba, because it's the first, is the shortness of the brake runs. The brake runs pretty much only fit a train length. So the mid-course brake run is a train length, and then the first brake run after the final helix is also 1 train length. So they're really snappy little brakes, but they're also really short little runs. So when you take pictures of them, you literally can only fit 1 train on them. So I really wonder what it's like having an emergency, an e-stop on the mid-course, for example, because you would just have to slam in there.
The first couple of cars would probably be hanging over the edge.
Yeah, it's really funny. But yeah, overall, Kumba is one of our absolute favorite coasters. It rides like a classic, but it has that B&M quality to it. It runs really, really well. And it has a bunch of little quirky things
just has
to it
such
that
a
are very
great-
old B&M,
such a
and I
great
really
presence.
like that. Yeah.
And it is the portrait of a young B&M, like showing the world how many roller coaster manufacturers' careers they were about to end.
Boom. Painful. Speaking of Busch Gardens Tampa, we recently rode Iron Gwazi, so make sure you check out all of our content on now YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, of course, thecoasterkings.com, and our special episode about SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment 2022 coasters. We're talking Icebreaker, Iron Gwazi, Pantheon, Emperor, all the good stuff. So check that out here on Coaster Kings Radio, and we'll catch you on the next Minisode. Bye!